Hello, I'm Anna, the Yarn Randomizer, and straighten out here. This is episode 66 of the Yarn Randomizer, and this is a knitting podcast. And it is the 10th of January of 2026. I'm going to get that right. And this is my first podcast of the year, but I do them every 2 weeks, whatever the case. And this is a knitting podcast, if I didn't already say that. I'd like to welcome folks who are just finding this podcast, and also welcome back to everybody who's watching regularly. Thank you for coming back. And I'll do the usual YouTube, please like and subscribe and that kind of stuff to help more people find this. So you can find me as the Yarn Randomizer on Ravelry and on Instagram, and that's how you get to me through Gmail as well, and all that information is down below. So you're going to see me look over here at my notes every so often. So one of the things, there may be some interruptions today, so hang on for that. It's a busy day at the house. But yeah, so I think today, okay, the important stuff up front. What I did want to say was to the person who won this yarn last time, I haven't gotten it in the mail yet. If you have seen some of my postings, you may know that we went through a whole lot of furnace drama. The furnace broke down a couple of days before Christmas. We had it replaced the Tuesday after. 2 days later, it failed. That brand new furnace failed. And there was a reason why. Because they had set it up for natural gas rather than propane, and so it overheated and was damaged. And so they had to come back and replace it again the following week. So in the course of about 2 weeks, we had to do everything we could to keep the house warm enough to be livable, and it just got kind of a little crazy. But so that's kept me kind of occupied. Now that's all taken care of. We actually have the new furnace was installed a couple of days ago, and it's working just fine now, and it was made to use propane, so we're good to go there. So I apologize for not getting this out. Thanks for your patience with me. This was the winner from last time, but now we have to talk about who won this yarn from last time, and that is Pauline Williamson. And so the YouTube handle is Pauline, Pauline, Williamson, Williamson -N90. So if that's you, get in touch with me via email, and let's figure out how to get this beautiful marinated yarn to you. Now, there'll be another giveaway in the stash management section later, and so I'll show that at that time, but I think you'll like it. So let's see. So that is the preliminaries done with. And so we'll get right to the knitting. I'm not wearing any knitting today because it's actually a little unseasonably warm this past 2 days. It's going to get really cold again tomorrow, but for today, it's reasonable temperatures, and it's a little bit warm in the house. And so, finally, and so we'll go to finished objects. So now, okay, yes, I've got it right here. So my finished objects so far for this year are my little long johns. Let's see if I hold that up there. These are the little long johns that I knit. So this was Yarn Randomizer pick number 1 for this year, and this was Forbidden Fibers Pride yarn in Honeydukes colorway. And it was just a little left over. I only had about 115 yards left, and decided I would make a little ornament because it was kind of Christmassy colored. And so I made this little pair of long johns as an ornament for the tree to join my other little knitted ornaments. And so I think it turned out really cute. You can see I've got little seed beads there for buttons down the front. And you can see it has a little flap on the back with buttons at the top of the flap. And so yeah, it turned out super cute. Let's see if I do that. Yeah, I don't know how clear that's showing up, but yeah, it's adorable. And so it was very quick. It only took me, I knit on it for 2 days. Now, obviously, I had other knitting going on, but it was very quick and very easy and super cute. I did it on size 3 needles, which is what's called for in the pattern. Now, I am a tight knitter, and so I think I could have sized up to size 4 and made it a little bigger. As it was, it used about 5 grams. Was it 5 grams of yarn? Yeah, 21, 22 yards of yarn. And so, yeah, super cute. And so that will be going into my little container of Christmas decorations. But yeah, it's by Susan B. Anderson, and she's got a lot of really nice patterns. If you've never looked at her patterns before, she's got a bunny I definitely want to make at some point. So I use 2 circulars for all this. I tend to use 2 circulars over magic loop. It's just a personal preference and everything. So I basically only use magic loop when I have no other option. But yeah, and so that was easy enough with these little small circumferences and everything. And so I think, yeah, I think that was all the details I had about it. But yeah, highly recommended. Very cute, great little ornament. And the ones you see most often are in solid red, which I should probably do at some point. But yeah, I thought the Christmas colors would be cute. All right. So that is my first finished object. I finished it on January 1st because it was my New Year's Eve cast on. And so now the next thing was my Christmas Eve cast on. I finished on I think the 3rd of January, just a couple of days later. And this is the Jaunty by Andrea Mowry. And I used this. So here's what they call the wrong side. I love the appearance of this side. And so it's a super squishy half fisherman's rib shawl, and it turned out great. And it is super squishy. I'm trying to think, I did size 6 needles with DK for this. And what else did I want to mention? Yeah, I had mentioned, I think last time when I was doing the increases on this, that I thought it was really obvious when it was time to do increases, and I did a little sketch in my pattern, which may not be the clearest thing, but try to give an idea how you recognize that. And the same thing was true for the decreases. You could easily recognize where the decreases needed to happen to keep them, I think it's 8 rows apart, and everything. And it was just really easy to do. And this pattern gets your noodle going as far as thinking about yarns in your stash to do with this. Now, one of the interesting things I had happen here was this yarn, the 2 skeins were a little different from each other, and I didn't do a whole lot. I didn't really do anything to blend them together. But the interesting thing is that difference looks more pronounced here on screen than it does in real life. But also it sort of fades in from one color to the next and gets lighter as you get further out here, which I think ends up being a nice effect in this case. So let's see if I don't know if I want to wrap this up right now, but I don't want to hit the microphone. But yeah, I think it turned out, all this variation in color turned out really nice. So I'm super, super happy with that. And I can understand, pardon me, the attraction of this pattern. It was just a snap to knit. It's super squishy and really a beautiful use of almost any kind of yarn. I'm getting ideas of other yarn in my stash I might like to use for this pattern. So yeah, highly recommended. Jaunty by Andrea Mowry, and it was a great knit. Loved it. All right, so those are my 2 finished objects, and they were, yeah, it was my New Year's Eve cast on and my Christmas Eve cast on are both done. I actually have nothing in my queue right now, so we have to fix that problem. I keep thinking I should actually do a couple of my Yarn Randomizer choices maybe next time to put a little bit in the queue, because I'm kind of not keeping much of a queue right now, but that's okay. So let's see. So now, as far as what I've been working on, so I've just been, other than the 2 things that I finished, I've been mainly working on 2 other projects. So one is an overdue Christmas present for my oldest son. Let's see if I can get this untangled here. There we go. Maybe getting tangled up there. There we go. And so it is a muscle burra hat, and I would say it's getting close to about 75% done with the main part, the main body of the hat there. And so this is from Desert Vista Dye Works. It's their You're Welcome colorway, which is a play on Moana, comes from Moana, and it's had this little rainbow mini that I used for the top, and I'll use again for the other end. But yeah, it's a really beautiful set of colors in this self-striping yarn. And so I just have to finish it off. This is great travel knitting. And I just keep working away at it, and I'll get this to my son sometime before the end of this month. And so yeah, it's the Muscle Burrow by Ysolda Teague is just a great little pattern for using up. Take your favorite like single skein of yarn, maybe fingering. I'm not sure how much yarn's required for the larger sizes. I've only ever done fingering, but yeah. And again, you can see I'm using 2 circulars there. Because I don't think I'm using size 2.5, and I didn't have a size 16-inch circular where I could do it all in one, and so I'm just doing it on 2 circulars here. Yeah, let's see, is there any other notes about that? Yeah, I think I'm about 3/4 of the way through the main skein, so hopefully this will be a finished object, and I'll show it off before I mail it off to Austin, Texas for my son. So that's that one. And then the other thing, I started feeling a little bit of a lack of knitting mojo for a little bit, which is like amazing. I almost never feel that way. I'm most always motivated. And it wasn't complete lack of mojo, but it was a little bit of kind of like, wasn't in the mood to work on the muscle burrow at some point. And so once I'd finished like the Christmas Eve cast on and stuff, I wanted to go back to some of my whips that are on deck. And so I went back to my Prairie. This is this lace yarn Prairie, and the sweater that I'm knitting, which is Birthday 61 by, do I have it written here? Yes. Oh yeah, by Anka Strick. And so it's a little constrained by the needle, but I made some significant progress on this. Once I picked this up and started knitting on it again, I just, I have kind of a pathological kind of, I don't want to call it a love-hate relationship, but there's just something really nice about knitting with really fine yarn. And I really like knitting with this lace weight yarn. And I really love how this half fisherman's, seems like I'm doing a lot of things in half fisherman's rib at this point. And so this is the Birthday 61. And so, for example, you can see this is part of the sleeve here. They've got these wide raglan bars coming down here and here, but it's not as obvious here because this is a very speckled yarn. But yeah, this half fisherman's rib is turning out lovely. This is Madeline Tosh Prairie, which they don't make anymore. It's a single ply lace weight, and even for a single ply, it is not a weak yarn. It's a sturdy yarn. I've never had any trouble with it. I've had trouble with yarn from Noro breaking when I knit with it. I don't think I would ever be able to use the unspun, just with the way that I do knitting, the way I knit and keep tension. But this yarn is absolutely fine. I never have any issues with it. And so yeah, that half fisherman's rib is coming out lovely. You can see the increases for the front and the sleeves there. And you can see what the inside of the fabric looks like. It's got that nubby kind of consistency that you see on that side of the half fisherman's rib. And this is the colorway Abiquiu, named for Abiquiu, New Mexico. And yeah, I have got, I think about 52 more rows to go on the yoke. And so we'll see how that looks when I get to that point. But I keep doing double checks as far as the gauge and the measure and how it's looking and everything. And I think it's looking pretty good. And yeah, you can see how wide this kind of straight band is there. That's one of the raglans. And so I think that's coming out pretty nicely. She gives gauges for unblocked and blocked in her pattern and everything. And I think this is going to have a lot. It's a superwash, so I think this will have a lot of relax quite a bit when blocked. And so yeah. So I'm just really, it's super slow. This is like, talk about slow, whatever. This is definitely slow knitting. And it's very detailed, as far as a knit. It's 100% pearls, except for when you knit one row below. And so it's all pearls and knit one. So one row is all pearls. The next row is knit one below pearl. And then you get the occasional increase and everything. And it's just, I don't know, I just really, there's something just lovely and satisfying about it. So this is going to be, consider, I don't have a year-long blanket this year, so this is going to be my year-long project. And so I think the big milestone will be when I get to the point where I split for the sleeves and everything. So yeah, so that's progressing well. And it was really just fun to pick it back up. I've got, I think, two or three other whips from last year, not even talking about my husband's motorcycle sweater. That will remain undiscussed. But I've got a couple other sweaters in progress from last year that I need to pick up and get to and kind of drive to completion while I work on this year's project. So not too much in the way of lingering whips in my queue. But yeah, I got a couple there. So that is all my works in progress. I have here to talk about my daily task of weaving 10 ends in. Well, I did weave in all the ends related to these finished projects, but I'm still not attending to my finishing basket the way I should. And you will see ample evidence of that when I go through my knits for this year. So I am going to go through my knits for this year. And so I've got to find a better way to kind of have the discipline to go back and do the finishing work required for some of these pieces. And so, yeah. And so now we'll just talk about the next yarn randomizer pick, and I can't wait to show this one to you. And this is Barker wool. This is her silky wool in the colorway Mama Needs a New Pair of Shoes, and I just love this. And so this is yarn that is made to be done with an assigned pooling project or pooling on purpose. And so yeah. And so I definitely want to use it for that purpose. So this was really great to see kind of pop up out of my stash in the random pick. So this is 75% merino, 25% silk single ply. And it's 437 yards. And so I did a recording looking at patterns, mainly at Dawn Barker's patterns, but also I looked at some other assigned pooling patterns and trying to decide what to make with this. So I've been having a tough time making a decision. So what I'm going to ask is I'm going to talk about two patterns. One is Shimmer by Dawn Barker, and it is a shawl. And so I'll put in a picture, and I'll also include a picture that shows the detail of the stitch that you use for the assigned pooling. And so it's a shawl, and it uses this sprout stitch in the assigned pooling. So I thought that's a possibility. And then the other one that's a possibility is Rover by Dawn Barker, which uses lines of these small nups. Now, I don't know if you're like me when it comes to like full-size baubles. I'm a little like, not crazy about it. I have done baubles on things before, and I usually end up using a crochet hook to work those. Basically, I'll form all the stitches around a crochet hook and then pull the loop through. They're just troublesome to do. And so I'm not sure, but I think nups are a little smaller scale, so maybe they'll be okay. But if you have any experience knitting either one of these patterns, or do you have another assigned pooling pattern you think would look great with this, I would love suggestions. But right now I'm trying to decide between these two. But if you have another possibility, let me know. If you have experience with these or with the nups, let me know if they're painful or not to do. But yeah, so I'm leaning towards doing the shimmer, but I was kind of hoping to do a cowl, but we'll see. So that's it. This is Yarn Randomizer pick number 2 for 2026. This beautiful Barker wool. Really love it. So yeah, the second random pick for the year. And this is going on. I want to put it on the needle soon, but I got to make a decision. So I'll put it in my queue as yarn in there, and we'll figure it out over the next week what to make with it. So, all right. And then on to acquisitions. So every year, the Fiber Seed has a year-end sale where they're clearing their shelves or whatever they call it. And so I always find it difficult to resist. The Fiber Seed from near Cincinnati, Ohio, Blanchester, Ohio, I think, is one of my favorite dyers. I like their yarns. They're very good, solid yarns, and they're great for stitch definition and that kind of thing. And it's, I think, it's wool from the United States, spun in the United States, and it's a unique yarn you won't find anywhere else, I don't think, because the yardages are definitely unique. And their worsted skeins and fingering skeins are 136 grams, not just 100 grams. And so that's one of the reasons they're priced the way they are. But I'll put a link into them below. But I picked up this colorway called Rise and Shine. And I got 5 skeins of this in this worsted weight yarn because I wanted to have enough to do some kind of sweater and everything. So I think this 1,025 yards will be sufficient for that. And so, yeah, it's just kind of a tonal pink and stuff. It looks really nice. So, yeah, I got 5 skeins of that. So I'm already in the hole buying yarn for this year. But, yeah, it's hard to resist the Fiber Seeds annual sale and everything. So I did go into that. So that leads right into stash management. So far this year, my this Christmas Eve cast on, I'm kind of not counting it. I didn't count it against myself because I knew I was going to, when I've got the skeins of yarn, I used it up 100%. So it kind of came in, used up, gone. So I'm not giving myself credit for using up this yarn. But I did give myself credit for my little long johns. So that so far this year, as far as credit budget, yarn budget, I used 21.9 yards there. And so that 5 skeins is 1,250. So I'm already in the hole. But I think I'll work my way out of it relatively quickly. I'll be catching up soon. I'm always the optimist on this. All right. And so now, last year, with the hole I dug myself into with my budget, I picked out a whole bunch of yarn to de-stash, and I have that kind of saved over there. And I reached in there. I'm kind of just picking out just this random skein of yarn out of my de-stash bag. And so the yarn that came up this time, and this is our giveaway this episode, is Desert Vista Dye Works, the same one I'm doing the Musselburgh hat from. This is their Viso fingering, which is a superwash 75-25 sock yarn. And this is from Summer Sock Camp 2021 for the Crazy Sock Lady. So this is really, so this is a self-striping yarn, and it's got this really nice contrast skein here with the sock set. So if you are interested, let's just talk about summer and comment about summer, and you will be in the running for getting your mitts on this yarn. So yeah, so there's that. So that's the giveaway for this episode. Now let's see, on to, so I've seen a lot of people do a run through of their 2025 knits, and so I was thinking about doing that here. So if you want to skip past all this, but I'm going to kind of go through my list and bring that up. So let me bring up my projects. I've got them all. The ones that are still here, I've got piled here. And we'll go through the 2025 knits. And it'll be quick. I'll list them all below. They'll be linked and everything. And let's see, I need to filter to year completed as 2025. And we'll start down there. And so we'll do that right now. We'll go through the 2025 knits. So Yarn Randomizer pick number 1 was this yarn from Stitch Together. and it's a beautiful combination of two colors. I think Just Breathe was one of the colors, and I think the other one was a yellow that was called Dune. Yes, Dune. And so I made this garter snake hat with that. It's really just a beanie, it just fits on, but I made it to go along with, I had made the cowl, the garter snake cowl already. So it's a great set and stuff. So it's a really nice, these are really nice for a garter, for a learning brioche, because it's a two-color brioche, which I think is easier to learn on if you have to correct anything. And it transitions to a two-color garter stitch. And so it's as simple as can be. There's no increases or decreases to do. You just transition between the brioche and the two-color garter and produce this kind of wedge shape in it. And so it ended up being a really nice complement to a cowl that I already had. And so highly recommend that pattern. That is by Lavagna Patricella. And so really great patterns and a great way to learn brioche. Now, my second Yarn Randomizer, and that was Yarn Randomizer pick number 32 from 2024. It was one from the previous year that I finished in 2025. Now, I did not bring my sock blockers here, but I have a pair of socks. So this was Yarn Randomizer pick number 25 from 2024. I finished it in 2025. And these are Rhinebeck Roomies socks. And these turned out really nice. I think this is Wendy Johnson's. Yeah, Gusset Heel. I used the Gusset Heel Basic Socks by Wendy Johnson, and I used the Crazy Sock Ladies Rhinebeck Roomies pattern and kind of inserted it onto this plain vanilla sock because I prefer doing toe-up socks. And so, yeah, and this yarn is Primrose yarn in the color Animal, and yeah, they turned out really nice. And yeah, that Rhinebeck Roomies pattern is a really nice texture. So those have been going strong. I've worn those a lot this year. Now, this next one I think is going to be a little tough to show. Let's see. Oh no, wait a second. I've got, there it is right there. Hold on. I'm going to get down here and get this. Okay. So now Yarn Randomizer project number 3 for 2025 was this cozy that I used for these tall mason jars. And so this is a mason jar cozy 3 ways. I did it up in some cornbread and honey DK that I had as a little mini skein. So I used that skein up. And yeah, it's a really, I love this pattern. I've done it both ways. It's normally you knit it down and do the bottom. Sometimes I've reversed it and done the bottom and knit it up. But yeah, that used up every bit of that mini, and that mini was called Magic Magenta. And so yeah, I use these a lot to help keep condensation off the cups, but I've become addicted to using these insulated cups now that have no problems with condensation. So I don't need the cozies as much, but I still like using them. So yeah, that's by Melissa Kwan. And again, all details on all these projects will be down below. Now, this project, Sunday Morning Socks Toe Up. This is from Carly Perrins, and it's a great pattern. You use some mohair or whatever fluffy lace yarn you want to use with a DK. My problem is I don't want you to see the bottom. I've worn these. These are basically house slippers for me, and I've really kind of worn them a lot, and so they're a little worse for wear on the bottom. But it's a great texture. It's a nice slip stitch texture. It's got a folded over cuff, and they really turned out neat, and I wear them all the time to keep my feet warm, and I need to really give these a wash. There's a really bad stain on one of them. It's like, oh my goodness, on the bottom of one. But they're a great pair of socks. Totally squishy and really comfy and really keep my feet warm. So highly recommend this pattern. So That was another pair of, these are basically booties, kind of, even though they're called socks. I think they're thick enough that you just kind of wear them around the house. Right, and so that was, yeah, Yarn Randomizer. That was my first random yarn pick for the year. Now my fifth random yarn pick for 2025 was this, oh, excuse me. This is Madeline Tosh Home, their bulky weight yarn. I had this one skein of it in Night Fell, and I decided to do this hat that's knit around this way in short rows. It has a little band at the bottom, kind of garter, reverse stockinette band at the bottom, and has a little boop at the top. And I really like this. I actually wear this hat every so often. I've got a lot of hats, as you can imagine, but I do like the way this one turned out. And it was from an old pattern book. It was a Short Rose Pillbox Hat by Mary Lamb Becker. You could probably find the book at a library somewhere. I can't remember what year that was published. Did they list that? No, I don't know. I could probably go in there and find those details, but it's from an older book called Homespun Hand Knit that I did. And so this turned out really nice. The variegation kind of conceals these kind of garter or pearl stitch ridges that are on this a little bit, but yeah, it works up really. It's a good hat for a bulky weight yarn. So very cute. Now, next is my cobblestone made out of the fiber seed worsted, and this is a project that's been sitting in my finishing basket, and it has definitely not had the ends woven in. It's not been blocked, and so let's kind of bring that up here. And this, I don't know if you can see this, but this thing is humongous. Okay, so it's odd. I know I've knit the fiber seed their sprout worsted so much. I know what gauge it knits up at on what needles and everything. But I think it was this garter stitch at the top that had an effect on my gauge. But also I picked a size that was just too big of the sweater. And so when I originally finished it, I had my husband try it on because it was definitely too big for me. And it looked like it was going to fit him okay. Well, things changed. He's lost, I don't know how much, he's down to, is it 30, 60, he's lost 65 pounds. And so he's he's svelte at this point. He's trim, he looks great, and this thing swamps him now as much as it does me. And so I'm actually going to frog this and use the yarn for a different project. And so I never finished it, was not satisfied with it, and I'll reuse it. I love the yarn, kind of speckled yarn there, and I think it was One Foggy Christmas Eve was the name of the colorway of this. And there was also problems with the short rows, and people had talked about that in the pattern notes. Some of the short rows, when you're going one direction, don't close up nicely and everything. So yeah, a lot of lessons learned. So I don't think I would knit this sweater again. I kind of like the look, but there's just something, I think you need to size down the needles for this garter stitch part or something. But I think fundamentally I just made a size that was too big at the time. And I did get the gauge that was expected for the stockinette, but I think things get more loosey-goosey up here at the garter part. So yeah. So that was a finished project that will be going away. That'll be getting frogged and go back into the pool for yarn to pick from. So let's see. Okay, next was Yarn Randomizer pick number 2 for 2025, and that was this beautiful rhododendron colorway yarn that my husband gave me. He gave me 2 skeins of fingering in this yarn colorway from Companion Fiber, and I knit this crazy fatigue hat, and right now it's stuffed into itself. Let me roll it up a little bit. And so it's basically a World War II pattern where you can use this. It's similar in style to the Musselburgh, in that you stuff it into itself and roll up a brim and wear it. And my husband really likes it. I'll put in a picture of it on him. But it's got kind of flat, kind of sewn down ends on it. And so the idea is that you can wear it as a hat, or you can stretch it out and wear it as a short scarf as well. And so it was a neat little World War II pattern, fatigue pattern, and the yarn did some significant pooling and stuff, did some wild stuff. And so, yeah. And that was yarn he picked up for me on one of his motorcycle trips. And so it was nice to make a hat for him out of that. And so, yeah. So that was that one. Let's see. Next is my Felix cardigan. This is another item that's been languishing in my finishing basket. So it's a really beautiful red cardigan using an alpaca Surrey yarn with a fingering or a sport yarn, I think. And it's the Felix cardigan. I just need to put buttons on this sucker. And so, yeah, I love how it turned out. I find the yoke was a little deep, and I may have made a size that was a bit on the large size for me. And so it'll be worth revisiting that pattern to see what size I need. But I've worn it. I like this. It's a very cozy, comfy sweater. Just need to put some buttons on it. So that's the Felix cardigan by Amy Christophers, and I used some Garn Studio Drops brushed alpaca with Lorna's Laces Resistance DK, which was more sporty than DK, I will say that. All right, this next one is one of my favorite knits of the year, and this is the Avenue Vest by Tori Yu. And so this is a vest that calls for, I think it calls for worsted weight yarn. Let me check that. They call for worsted. I used a DK. So I used this DK, and this is the colorway City Streetlights from the Fiber Seed in their DK. And I really love this vest. It's got great details, like the shoulder. You see how the shoulder, you pick up stitches out of the shoulder to work forward. The cast off has a knit round, and then you cast off, so you get this nice kind of stitch running around the edges, very polished looking and everything. And again, you see the increases here for the sleeves, and I think it turned out great. And so this is one I have worn a lot. So this was Yarn Randomizer pick number 7 from last year. And so, yeah, one of my favorite knits. I would definitely do that one again. Tori Yu's got some great patterns. Now, the next thing is my Belle de Jour socks. Let me bring my little container over here. And these are a slip stitch sock. And they are finished, and I've worn them, and I love this slip stitch pattern. And this yarn is, let's see, this is Hypnotic Yarn Plush Sock in the colorway Grape Crush. But they were in my finishing basket, and I will show you why. Ah, there we go. Because I blew out the toe. Look at that. I need to do a repair. And so I've got those in my finishing basket. These were, again, this is a Flegel heel toe up sock. Really like Flegel heels, and sort of a Flegel heel. It's a little different. It's got an unusual heel, and it's got this great slip stitch pattern with the little garter ridge bits in there and stuff. And so it's just I really highly recommend the pattern. It's Belle de Jour by Natalia Vasileva. And so, yeah, I've made socks in this pattern twice. So that was Yarn Randomizer pick number 4 for the year. Then next is, do I have it there? I knitted, this is Yarn Randomizer pick number 10. And I did the 10 days of bobble. I did this cable bobble, which I modified the pattern quite a bit. But yeah, I think it came out really nice. This is part of my knitted ornaments now. And this was using up some Mandy's Making, a trip to Italy colorway in her fingering. I think it's her, she calls it sock or sock yarn. So that turned out super cute. Now, that was Yarn Randomizer Project 10. Now, my Christmas Eve cast on for 2024, I did not finish until, was it June? So I worked on this until June, and I love this sweater. So this is the Campside Classic by Alicia Plummer, and it worked up great. It's got this lace kind of eyelets all over the lower section. You can see those, and it has these long kind of straight sleeves, and I love these sleeves. There's no, they have a nice trim, kind of very polished fit, and I think the sweater ended up great. I love this sweater. I've worn it multiple times. And yeah, so the Campside Classic, and this is Hypnotic Yarns Plush Decay from their Christmas cast-on box. Yeah, love it. I love this sweater, and I would definitely do this one again. Now, let's see, next. So that was my lingering Christmas Eve cast on there. All right, next is the Volkic by Martina Bam. It's a cowl. And this was my random yarn pick number 13 for the year. And it was a whole bunch of this leftover Malabrigo sock from I think a Jimmy Bean's wool annual shawl one year. And so I did them, I think I just put them in here just kind of figured out an order to do them in here. And I picked out, I have some black of the Malabrigo sock, and so I used that at the ends. And I love this cowl. It is squishy and cozy. It's called, Volkig means a cloudy in German. And so, yeah, and so I love the way it turned out. It's a simple one round pattern, and you get this nice ruched effect with the yarn and everything along these areas. And highly recommend. Simple pattern for using up some fingering yarn. It's very nice. All right, so that's number 13. And then number 15 is Jimmy's Little Helper. And this was this beautiful red yarn that I had. I made the Jimmy's Little Helper hat. The hat, I think the pattern says it's not available, but I've put a link in my project where you can get this. You can still find this pattern online. And so this is my kind of knit Santa hat. Oh my gosh, is that a great red? This is called Blood Runs Cold from Madeline Tosh in their vintage yarn. And this is an alpaca pom-pom I picked up somewhere, which is unbelievably soft. I love this combination. And so this got some wear over the holidays. And so that was nice. That was project yarn pick number 15 for the year. Next, oh, and it was, I'll go over the stats for the whole year here at the end. But yeah, it was 34 projects total, so we got a little ways to go. So my was it Yarn Randomizer pick number 12 for the year is this terrazzo neck from Petite Knit. And this is made out of some fiber seed sprout worsted in the colorway Hanukkah Night 2. I had bought that yarn on sale at some point. And Superfine Yarn Co., who they don't dye anymore, but they're Shoreway Kids Silk in Moon Dust. And so it was like the perfect combination of colors. They just complemented. They just were made to go together. And so this neck, I've worn it, and oh, this is so warm. Such a nice dicky is what I'd normally call this rather than a cowl. But yeah, this was an interesting knit. I would say the purl through the back of the loops on parts of this are a little bit of a pain in the butt when you are carrying two a regular yarn and a lace weight yarn together, trying to make sure you caught the lace weight yarn when you're doing the purl through the back of the loops is a pain. And so that would be the only downside to that pattern. Otherwise, I loved it. Boy, that neck, I made it as long as specified in the pattern, and man, that's a long, she likes long necks on some of her patterns. So let's see, next is the, this was a request from my husband to mimic a lighthouse when he was on vacation that he saw. And so this is the Turn a Square by Jared Flood. And this is the, using a couple of yarns here. This one is a Stitch Together Stitch Worsted. She doesn't dye anymore, but it's a great tonal red. And this Bare Naked Wool's Polypay Worsted, which is kind of an off-white there. And I made a little tiny pom-pom for the top to mimic the lighthouse that was at the most easternmost point in the United States. And so he went and stopped there. Let's see. That there. Okay. So yes, I made that hat at request. Let's see. And then we have the, this was the mystery wool along from, I did a retreat with Bare Naked Wools, and they had this as their mystery wool along, and it's called the Bellwether Solstice Hap. And so this was not a random pick, but this came out absolutely beautifully. So this is a shawl of fingering, and some of these are even a little finer than fingering, I think. And it is a beautiful shawl and some great yarns from Bare Naked Wools. And so, yeah. And so that turned out quite beautiful. And so that was another one that wasn't a random pick. It was just part of the retreat. And then next is the Yarn Randomizer pick number 6 for the year. And that was this Knit Picks Capra DK in the colorway Loganberry Heather. Now I'm going to hold this up and you're going to go like, oh my goodness, this has got some serious pilling going on, but I love this sweater. And so this is the Willow Pullover by Andrea Gaughan. And it is lovely. And so I think my only downside would be that I feel like the Capra DK from Knit Picks is a little on the unstructured or soft side, so you can see the serious pilling going on. It's going to need a shave. But yeah, I love the color and I love the texture, and it just turned out great. This big fold over collar up here and the long cozy sleeves, and just a great pattern by Andrea Gaughan, the Willow Pullover. And so that was really nice. This was my 6th random pick for the year. You notice that they don't finish in order. I don't necessarily do them in order, and they don't always finish in order. So, all right, the next finished object for the year was this. This was a Yarn Randomizer pick and project from 2024 that I had lingered on, and I had kind of got stalled on it because I'd had some trouble with the increases. Now I understand increases for half fisherman's rib and brioche much better now, and I did a sketch in this project about how to understand those increases because sometimes they didn't turn out quite right, and I got hung up about potentially fixing them, but I finally decided, nope, it's good enough. Nobody's going to notice. And so this is make sure I'm holding up this right way. Yes, this is it. This is the Satima shawl, and this is by Vera Valimaki, and this just turned out so lovely. I love wearing this shawl. And so it's a brioche shawl that has single color and 2-color brioche in it and some garter stitch, and it is just beautiful. This is the colorful yarn is Hedgehog Fiber Skinny Singles in Oracle, and then the gray is Madeline Tosh Merino Light in Great Gray Owl. And again, all the details are in the project pages, but oh, just love this. Love how this turned out. And the squish factor on this is off the wall. Just incredible. Beautiful. Just so cozy. I love wearing this shawl. All right. So that was number 13 from 2024. It was a stalled whip and finally finished that off. Now, next, another requested hat by my husband. And this was to commemorate, the previous year, he had stopped by the northernmost point in the continental United States. And so he wanted me to mimic the marker there at that location, and I did with these colors from Knit Picks. This is Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted, and this matches. I'll put in a picture of the marker, but I matched the marker pretty well, and I adjusted the turn square pattern so that the decreases up here mimicked the shape of the marker as much as possible, and so I think that turned out nice. So you can see those details in my pattern in my project. There's always, everything I knit has a corresponding pattern project page in Ravelry. So yeah, that turned out really nice. So that was another request on his part. Now the next one is the sock head cowl, and this was project number 6. This is yarn pick number 16 for 2025. I will put in a picture of my stepson wearing it. He got it for Christmas, and so it was made from River City Yarns Hat Trick, and I used as much of that as possible in a sock head cowl by Kelly McClure, and it turned out great. And you can see it's keeping him nice and warm up there. The colorway was for the Minnesota ice hockey team. So then next, see if I can find it. Here it is. Another item that's been lingering in my finishing basket. Let's see. This is the 3 French Hens by Claire Garland. And so this is a little tiny chicken. So I need to put little eyes and the comb and a beak on here, but I've got the shape right, and this was using some leftover Misty Alpaca hand paint lace in Moroccan Spice. I used it double, but I think it went together. Really great color for a chicken. And I've got the felt over there for doing those little bits. I just have to do that little bit of hand sewing on this. So this has been lingering in my finishing basket. And that was Yarn Randomizer project number 21 for 2025. Then the next one, I'll just put in a picture of it because it's living its life in my kitchen sink. It's the, this is Yarn Randomizer project number 22, the pie cloth, and I've knit this before. I love this pattern. This is like a $1 pattern, and it's a great pattern. And it's my favorite washcloth, and so it is knit with some leftover Patton's Croy. I mainly Gentry Gray, and then I used up some flax to finish it when I didn't have quite enough. But it's living its best life in my kitchen sink right now. So that's my kitchen washcloth, and I do prefer a wool kitchen washcloth to a cotton one personally. That's just a personal preference. All right, now let's see, the next one is Yarn Randomizer pick number 11. And so this picked out, this it was some leftover mohair that I had that got picked out. And so I just decided to do an entire scarf of remnants of mohair that I had using the Color Play Mohair Scarf and Wrap. So I did the scarf. And so I really like how this turned out. And this thing is just majorly squishy and is really cozy. And I used up a bunch of scraps doing this. And so there's just Garn Studio, some of their kids silk in here, Les Garçons mohair silk, some Madeline Tosh impression. And so if you want to see all the details on that, that's all in the project. So yes, ended up, did I talk about how long? I used 850 yards, used the mohair double. So if you want a test project for doing like the Cumulus blouse, this is a perfect candidate because it's supposed to be the same gauge. And so you can check how your gauge works up for that. Yeah, I should put the finished dimensions in the project. Yeah, love how that turned out. And so I've ended up doing a lot of projects that use a bunch of leftover scraps this year. So that was number 11, the 11th pick for the year. Next one is another scrappy project. So this is the Park City Cow by Ann Budd. And this is the second time I've made this. And this is made with some leftover yarn from Jimmy Bean's Wool project from their craft event from 2021, and I used the yarn in exactly the same order they were used in the project, and I think it turned out great. And so this, I used up every bit of it. And so, yeah, so that was, and this is all, there's 3 different yarns in here. They're all, I'm trying to think if they're all single plies or not. But if you go to my stash entry, yes, Neighborhood Fiber Co., Rustic Fingering, Madeline Tosh, Tosh Merino Light, and Moondrake Co. Soft Fingering. And so all the colorways, yeah, I got a full listing of all the yarns used in the cowl in the project. This is one of my favorite yarn colors here. It's called Sweet and Low from Madeline Tosh. Love that colorway. So that ended up really nice. And again, a great scrappy project there. So that was pick number 18. Next was Yarn Randomizer pick number 17. I have to dip way down in my bucket here. And this was the Break of Dawn shawl. And this is a garter stitch lace shawl. I really like it because you don't have to worry about any curling. It's got a nice picot edge and some rows of eyelets to start out. And this is the color Green Apple from 100 Ravens in their yarn IACHOS, IACHOS. And so this is the colorway Granny Smith. That looks like a Granny Smith, doesn't it? And so, yeah, that turned out really nice, super squishy, super easy knit. I linked a spreadsheet in the pattern that lets you understand, like, if you want to do more repeats of the lace, like, you can use this as the spreadsheet as a tool to figure out if you're going to have enough yarn to do more repeats. And so I did this many repeats because that's all I could fit in. I only had 16 yards left, so I think I used it up pretty well. And that was pick number 17 for the year. And then next one, I'll put in a picture. It's the Riptide Scarfette. That was Yarn Randomizer yarn pick number 23, and it was a gift from my middle son. He wanted a skinny scarf of this yarn when he saw it, when I brought it. I was visiting my sons. I picked up yarn at a retreat, and when my son saw this yarn color, he was like, "Ooh, can I have a skinny scarf out of that?" And so he got one. So that I got the yarn in early 2024, and so he got it for Christmas this year. But I think he really likes it. So we talked about it. He really likes how it turned out. Now that was Yarn Randomizer pick number 23. Next is let me get the rest of these out of the bucket here. Next one is my hat from the Ghost Ranch Retreat Knit One Hike Two, and so this was we got a class on picking colors for Fair Isle knitting, and you see my floats on the inside there. And so this is made with Jamieson's of Shetland double knitting, and so yeah, I used those were the colors I ended up picking, and I really loved how it turned out. It's I don't know if the pattern's out yet, but I'm trying to remember. But I'll add more details so you can find. Mucklestone is her name, the designer's name, and so I think she's going to have a published pattern for this soon. But just a really sweet little hat, really nice beanie, and it was a really fun knit and a good practice in picking colors for that type of knitting. Let's see. Next is Yarn Randomizer pick number 20, and this was some Fiber Nymph Dye Works sock blank, and I made my dog a little sweater. I'll put a picture of him in it there. And so there is that project. And it's funny how it's like, even though I was holding it double, it ended up from end to end, it ended up looking like sort of a fade. I made the ribbing at the back a little longer than what was called for, and I did use a smaller needle for that ribbing. And so it's the Striped Pup Sweater by Stephen West, but not striped. I just made it a solid color. And yeah, I think that turned out nice. When I use a sock blank, I don't I'm a boring person. I don't knit it off of unraveling it off the blank. I unwind the blank completely and steam it and skein it up so that it's not kinky when I use it, because I think it does affect the gauge when you use that yarn kinked up. So that's how it works for me. Your mileage may vary. So yeah, that was Yarn Randomizer pick number 20. Next was Yarn Randomizer pick number 25. And so I ended up making, I still have not blocked this, but this is the Harris hood. And I would say, and I made an optional, I made a casing. This is a fold over brim edge anyway. And I made eyelets for an I cord. And I detail how I did that in my project page. And I combined some mohair silk from Le Garçon and Jason's Aqua with Lavender Loon Yarn Coziac DK, and this thing is unbelievably soft. I would say the only downside I have on this is they have you really do a short ribbing at the bottom and a Italian bind off, and I think it could be a little longer. I may run a piece of elastic down in there to pull it in a little bit. I don't know, but I feel like it wants to curl outward. But again, I have not blocked it yet, so I need to do that. But yeah, made the I cord with a cordsmith tool, which was super easy. And when my husband saw this, he kind of like, "Ooh, can I have that?" And so I'll put in a picture of him wearing it. And so he really likes it. You can see I'm warm in here. I would unsnap this shirt I'm wearing, but I don't want to interfere with the microphone. So, all right. Next. So I have to do pictures for the next 3 items. And so I have the teeny weeny beanie. I'll put in a picture. I made that for my youngest son, and it's out of Catnap and Indy in their colorway Golden Eyes. It's a black yarn with little random areas of a gold color in there, and I love how it knit up. It was really nice. And I love the teeny weeny beanie. I will definitely knit that one again. I like the structure and how it was knitted. It comes out really neat. It's a perfect beanie and stuff, and he loves it. And so he got that for Christmas. And then that was the Yarn Randomizer Yarn pick number 26. The next one was the Soho scrunchie. It wasn't a random yarn pick. I just wanted to make a scrunchie. And so I made one, and I gave it to my friend Lavon to give to one of her kids or grandkids and stuff. So I'll put in a picture of that. I made that out of the fiber seed sprout worsted in their colorway Neon Lights. And I think it turned out great. And I'll definitely be making more of those. That was a super easy pattern. It's Tori Yu's Soho scrunchie pattern. And then next, I made a hat for a friend of mine, Dana. She had been hospitalized in the time frame around Christmas and I think a little ways before Christmas and everything. And I knitted a hat out of the yarn I got in my my Advent from Twice Sheared Sheep. And so I used a doodle deck pattern, and it's the herringbone. I used the herringbone hat pattern, but I used a doodle deck to do the color work there. And so yeah, I think I'll put a picture if I haven't already. And I really love how that turned out. So she's got it, and I gave her 2 different size pom-poms, one ridiculously huge one and one more normal size one, so she can wear it with whatever pom-pom she likes and everything. And then finally, the elephant in the room, let me put this down here, is I've got it now blocked. Oh my goodness, this thing is a beast. And so it's my Bubbly Blossoms blanket, which I finished at the end of the year. It just came off the blocking mats this week. Let's see. Oh yeah, I'm just looking at that like, is that a drop stitch? No, it's not a drop stitch. So yeah, and it turned out great. And so this was my year-long blanket project, and I got it done a few days before the end of the year. And so now it's going to go on. I think I'll put this one on the guest bed, and I have my other one. So this one's the Bubbly Blossoms blanket. I did something similar last year, not last year, but in 2024, I knit the Slipstravaganza blanket. And this is all knit with Lancaba Mayanillo. And so this one came out great. You can see both those projects. I'll link them both below. And so, oh, excuse me, I'm leaning in a little close there. But yeah, that's what it. So it was 34 items knit, 10 hats, 5 shawls and scarves, 5 sweaters and vests, 4 cowls, 3 pairs of socks, 1 blanket, and 6 odds and ends, scrunchies, dog sweaters, that kind of stuff, using a total of 20,815 yards. So that was my overview of my knitting from last year. So now we'll move on to non-knitting related stuff. And so I'll do this relatively quickly because it's been over an hour. So, okay, so now a video favorite. So this one is actually going to be Yarny Nitty. And so this time it's a nitty video and it's from NimbleNeedles. And so I watched this a few weeks ago and he has a video on a better way, what he calls is a better way to do German short rows. And it goes into depth about how you do German short rows and how you pull that stitch over, how you approach it so that it makes the stitch look not twisted, how you want it to look, maybe not so much not twisted, but kind of how it appears on the right side of the fabric. And so he goes through kind of a variety of possible combinations of how you work that. And it's really a video worth watching if you like to do German short rows. So I will link, here's the image, and I'll put the link in there. And so that's my video favorite for the week. He's got a lot of great videos worth watching. And then what I'm watching and reading. So I've been watching, Fallout on Amazon Prime and really enjoying that. This is a science fiction series about a kind of slightly different world than ours, where what happens is, the Cold War, corporations get into building fallout shelters and all this other kind of stuff. And it becomes such a moneymaker for them that the companies end up to continue to profit and everything end up triggering nuclear holocaust kind of war on the world in order to continue to be worthwhile and make money. They don't want peace. They wanted things to continue where people were afraid and needed the fallout shelters and that kind of thing. And so now you're seeing the world years and years later and how it ended up. And there are these Fallout games, which I've only played a little bit, but it's a great science fiction setting. There's a good chunk of humor to it. And it's Walton Goggins is just amazing as an actor in this show, as somebody who was an actor and a kind of the face of the shelter, the Fallout shelter, this company. And now in this later time is what they call a ghoul, or somebody who's been affected by radiation, who's long lived but looks a little bit gruesome in appearance. But it's an interesting setting, primarily following him and the woman character who is trying to find her father, who she found out did some horrible things to interfere with people who were recovering from this terrible war because of fear, I think, of competition. Just, again, good science fiction show, good chunk of humor, but also kind of a little crazy and a little fun. And so I've been really enjoying watching that. I love the sequences with Walter Goggins in there, particularly in the past, are really, really good. Let's see. And then I'm also continuing to watch Columbo. It's my comfort watch. And so I'm making my way, I think, through the 5th season of that now. And I did watch, I may not have mentioned it before, but I watched the Marvel Zombies series. This is an animated series, and that was really off the wall and kind of wild to think about, combine a zombie apocalypse with superheroes. And when you have superheroes who become zombies, they can be that much, obviously much worse than regular zombies. And so, yeah, it was pretty entertaining. So that's what I've been watching. And then As far as listening, I started listening to the Murderbot series, an unabridged version of it on Audible, and really enjoying that. And it's really interesting because in the books, the perspective is 100% him talking about kind of what's going on, which I'm really enjoying. I don't know if it stays that way, but it's a pretty interesting way to present the story. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, pardon me, I'm going to take a drink. So I was looking around for stuff to read, and I was looking at the Hugo winners for different years, different decades, and different years. And I was looking at, oh yeah, it's the Ray Bradbury Award. It used to be, I think, screenplay, but then they switched it to the Ray Bradbury Award that has to do with people who bring um, science fiction to either video or audio kind of things. And there was this award for this series. It was from the year 2000. It was done on NPR, and it was so stories for the new millennium, and a bunch of short science fiction stories. So I think there's 26 episodes total. Let me see if I can see that. I have my second monitor all the way back there. 2000X was the name of the series. It was a dramatic anthology series of science fiction stories. And it's not, you can't go to NPR's website and listen to it. It's not there. But I looked around and I found some guy has all of the audio episodes up on his webpage. And so I'll link that below. And so it's called 2000X, was from NPR, and they've got like the first episode, one of the short stories there is by Robert Heinlein. The second one has a story by Ursula K. Le Guin. So there's some really classic science fiction authors and stories in here, and they're like the first episode. One of the actors in the episode doing the voice work is Richard Dreyfuss, and so these are really fun and really interesting. And so I'll share the link. One thing I want to figure out is if it's possible to download these, and so I could load them up and listen to them like on my phone over my headset or something. But yeah, so that's what I'm listening to and what I'm playing. It's still World of Warcraft with my brother, and Morrowind with my sons. And my brother and I are getting ready. They're switching over from the kind of vanilla version of World of Warcraft Classic Anniversary Edition to Burning Crusade. So we're trying to get ready for that. That's coming up next week. It starts, and then that's the pre-patch, and then the full deployment of the game happens on the 5th of February. So yeah, we're having fun doing that. So let's see, an hour and 12 minutes. Oh my goodness, an hour and 12 minutes. But yeah, that's everything going on. We've survived our furnace debacle and actually have heat, thank goodness, finally, and don't have to be tending a wood burning stove 24 hours a day to keep the house warm. Oh, that was a pain. And also the smoke and everything you get from that. Oh my goodness. So we're back to having an actual furnace, which is great. And so that drama is all done with. I did want to mention, I forgot to talk about the channel income. I should have mentioned this earlier. We did go over 500 before the end of the year, and I made a donation to Wikipedia, and so I'll put in a picture of the receipt, and so I sent them $100. And so the next $100 is for me to cover utilities here. And then we'll build up to doing another gift certificate for $100 for a viewer and stuff. So we're getting there. So I'm donating about 2/3 of the money coming into the channel. 1/3 to people who watch, 1/3 to a charity, and then 1/3 stays with me. So that's the current pattern. All right. Well, I hope you are having a great new year so far, that you had a great holiday season and everything. And I hope you're enjoying the weather where you are. I know it's super hot down in the southern hemisphere right now. And we're having temperatures go back and forth here. But I'm just glad we don't have a lot of snow. So that's been minimal so far. But yeah, but really, it's still great sweater weather when it's not unseasonably warm. And so I hope you're enjoying wearing your sweaters if you're in cooler weather. And I hope you're dealing with the heat if you're in a hotter climate. And but otherwise, in the meantime, enjoy your knit.